So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and let's talk about the iPhone SE 4 upgrade from the SE 3rd generation. Now, it's likely just going to be called the iPhone SE. They don't usually call it SE 4 or SE 3, but we're talking about generational leaps here, and you're basically looking at it right here. And you might be wondering, well, how do you have the phone already? Well, technically, this is not the exact phone, but this is basically what's coming here. So the first new feature change is going to be an upgraded OLED display. Now it's going to be 60 Hertz, more than likely. I don't think we're seeing promotion on the SE line, but I don't think that's going to bother a lot of people because at this price, this customer probably is going to like the fact that if they had an SE3, they're going to an OLED display here that is much larger than their Retina LCD panel iPhone SE from years ago with the iPhone 8 and the home button design. Going up to this is going to be quite the leap. Yes, you're going to have the older notch, but that notch is technically not super outdated because it's kind of still on the MacBooks. But compared to Dynamic Island and punch hole displays, it definitely looks kind of like in your face. But really, at the same time, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I also wouldn't be shocked if they pulled a fast one on us and brought Dynamic Island, but I don't see it happening for the iPhone SE. It just doesn't seem very likely that they will bring a top-end feature. What will be an upgrade, though, to the SE4, well, you'll be given Face ID. Face ID is a major change over having Touch ID. And finally, across the lineup, all iPhones will now feature Face ID. So what they got to do next now is kind of get the Face ID to come to things like the MacBook. We don't have it there, but we're going to have it on the SE4. So Face ID is going to be quite a nice upgrade from this phone. However, it's going to get a bit thicker. Now, I do have this iPhone in a case, but it's going to get a bit thicker for sure versus the iPhone SE, which was super thin and light. But also there was a big price to pay with this phone because of that lightness. This lightness factor had given you really small battery. So you're definitely going to get an upgraded battery capacity, a bigger size and longer lasting battery. Anytime you increase the size of the phone, you will be getting a bigger battery. Now, this phone is also going to feature the chip that comes in the iPhone 16. More than likely, the A18 will make its way to the iPhone SE, but I wouldn't be surprised if they went with an A17 like they did in the Mini. So that's not a guarantee yet. We'll see when it launches. But I would like to see the A18 in here, but the A17 Pro chip or A17 in here, I would not, be surprised if that chip becomes available in the SE4. But the A18 would probably be likely because usually they've done this in the past where the SE has the same chip as the main standard iPhone. I also think we're going to see Apple Intelligence like found on the iPhone 16 for the SE4 when it arrives either later this week or next week, which are the rumors right now. Usually they are pretty close, so we'll see if that's what happens. The next major change is if you had an older iPhone 13 or iPhone 14, you likely encountered the fact that most technology is going towards USB-C, and you'll be upgrading to USB-C. That is going to be a big change from the older iPhones, and your SE4 will be getting the upgraded USB-C. So you're finally going to have the universal standard version of charging that you don't find on your older SE. So that is a big deal as well, and something to definitely expect. Another thing that the SE had was 4 gigabytes of RAM. So if we go to Geekbench 6 here, you'll see we had the A15 Bionic and 4 gigabytes of RAM. This phone was also, pretty decent for what it is, but that is really low RAM here in 2025, so I wouldn't be surprised if the SE upgrade here does go to a solid 8 gigabytes of RAM. 4 gigabytes of RAM is just not enough. This is the 13 here that I'm using to showcase it because it's basically the same body. But this 4 gigabytes of RAM is definitely not going to be enough, so going to the SE4 is likely going to upgrade your RAM all the way up to 8 gigabytes. I do see that happening, but I wouldn't be surprised once again if Apple doesn't give you the Apple Intelligence and gives you 6 gigs of RAM. It's a wild card. We're going to have to see if they bring the Apple Intelligence to the SE, because technically the Apple Intelligence is supposed to be like the new flagship feature. So I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't bring it here. It would probably annoy a lot of people though. So I do think we might see it. I do think so. So 8 gigabytes of RAM, A18 chip, and Apple Intelligence is my guess for what to expect on the upcoming iPhone SE for sure. Now, one of the trademark things of SE is it's always had a single camera. And I do think this is a possibility that Apple will retain the single camera and not give you the dual setup that you find on an iPhone 14 or 13. So this design right here is definitely classic iPhone 13 series. I do think we're going to see just one of those lenses like that. You're just going to see one lens on the iPhone SE4 here, and it's going to retain that look. This will be the first time we've seen a single lens on a 6.1 inch iPhone since the iPhone XR. So that's going to be pretty nice if you're into those phones that just have a single lens. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to crop in on the 48 megapixel sensor to give you more zoom than you even find on the older iPhone 13. You're not going to have ultra wide, but you're going to have that crop in effect that gives you a nice zooming effect. So do keep that in mind. The phone should also be able to record in pretty high quality video and give you action modes and stuff like that, because they're going to be using their highest quality main sensor on the SE. So that's going to be a pretty good value. But if you're the type of person who wants zoom, you want the extra bits, you'll want a regular 16 or you'll want a 16 Pro series device for sure. So the lens upgrade is going to be pretty great coming from the SE. It's like going to be 4 times sharper, much better video, and the ability to crop in on the sensor, giving you much further zoom. It's just going to be an all-around great upgrade. Even though it's just a single camera, it's still a big upgrade. The much longer battery life should allow you to get a little bit more longevity in taking photos and videos on the upcoming SE4. One thing I do think is going to be a topic that people are annoyed by is the fact that the Retina display is still not ProMotion. But I don't see them bringing out a phone that's cheaper than the 16 that has a smoother display. I just don't see it happening. So you better get ready, because 60 hertz is more than likely what is coming. I also think you're going to get better modem. You're going to get maybe even an Apple modem for the first time. Apple's been investing in this, and they likely will be bringing this. But I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't get it just yet. Still, I would expect maybe a much improved phone call quality, better connectivity and reception strength, and better 5G performance over this older SE. That's going to be an area that doesn't really get talked about a lot, but the fact of the matter is the phone is going to be a better phone as a phone with better reception. So that is a big deal for those of you coming from the older version. Now, the price tag of this phone is likely going to run right around $499. I feel like maybe $549. And sometimes Apple really jacks the price up on certain things. So $599 is my highest maximum guess. That wouldn't be out of line, I feel like, for the way Apple does things. But $499 is what I think it might be, with anywhere between $499 and $599 being my max. So let me know your thoughts on where you think they're going to price the iPhone SE for, but my guess is $549. That's my final answer. Let me know your guess down below. I do think they're likely to sell millions of these, because a lot of people don't care about having the latest and greatest tech, but also need a phone. They need a new phone, and they don't want to pay a lot of money for it because they just don't care about phones like that. You and I, the tech enthusiasts, are going to be like, this is an absolute joke of a phone compared to the top of the line. This phone's not designed for the tech enthusiasts. It's going to be designed for those of you who want something modern but a pretty good deal, and you don't care about having a Pro or a Pro Max or even, an S25 or something like that. This is going to be an absolute steal for you. And you might be wondering, well, why don't you just get a 14 or a 13, and how is it different? Well, the iPhone 13 here and iPhone 14 are not the same phone because, number one, they have dual cameras. Number two, they'll have older chips. Number three, they're going to have a likely worse battery life due to the older chip efficiency. In addition, they're likely not going to have as long of software update because of the chip being older. And they're just overall internally an older phone with just maybe an extra camera. So if you have a 13 or a 14, the SE can actually be a decent upgrade from those phones as well. Definitely not from the 15 or 16, but maybe the 13 or the 14, you might like this change, or you might not mind going to an SE4. So there is going to be value to be had here with this newer SE4. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you agree with what I believe is coming, if you disagree, if you have any other things you think they're going to bring, or any disappointments you think might happen, drop them down below. And stay tuned, because I'm going to be covering the SE4. I'm going to do some speed tests, some comparisons, as well as some reviews of the upcoming SE4. So stay tuned to the channel. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Nick here. Be sure to be well. And peace.